Hey! Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, or whenever this finds you. I'm your host Chantal Kelechi, and thank you for joining me on another episode of To Be Confirmed, the latest, hottest podcast series which seeks to answer society's larger questions about race and racism, because often the answer to these questions remain, well, to be confirmed. Tune in, listen, and prepare to be inspired, provoked, and moved as we dive into another episode of To Be Confirmed. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. My name is Chantal Kelechi, and I am a writer, social activist, and commentator, and I like to provoke thought, conversation, and most importantly, racists. And welcome to part 2 of To Be Confirmed. Now, the episode title is Black Women, Picture, Portrayal, and Playback. The question I asked my survey people was, do you feel inherently misunderstood as a Black woman? And by that, I caveated that by saying through racial microaggressions and the way that Black women are spoken to and about, and in your relationships, whether they be platonic or romantic. Now, before we get onto your immediate reactions onto this, a few quotes that stood out to me again were, I wouldn't say inherently, but situationally, yes. Second person said, yes, our strength can sometimes be mistaken for arrogance or aggression in professional or personal life. Mm-hmm. We already addressed that in pictures, so I think that's quite ironic that that's sort of interlinked here. Mm-hmm. Another quote that I've seen here is, I would definitely say romantically and platonically, I feel inherently misunderstood. In dating cis-het Black men in particular, there is always a sense of prioritizing their own needs. But in terms of understanding the plight of Black women, I am being unreasonable, overreacting, and emotional to expect that effort from them. Now, with non-Black people platonically, as a whole, they will never really understand the experience of a Black woman. So I think there is always an element to that they bring in their interactions with me at all times. Now, immediately I thought Kevin Samuels, but don't you worry, we've got a whole segment ready for Dr. Kevin, Mr. Kevin.
Rest in peace.
Ooh. Anyways. So one thing I'd like to do here is, Kelechi, on the screen here with the second question, I would like to ask in terms of your thoughts, your views, your immediate reactions to this question.
I think it's interesting that one of the people mentioned about, cis-het Black men and then holding that space for them and feeling misunderstood. I think that Black women find solace in each other.
Yes.
And this is why Black feminism came about, womanism specifically came about, because we find solace in each other. Yes. And I think it was Toni Morrison who described it, I think it was in Sula, when I think it was a Black man actually that was talking, and he said that, she's a friend of my soul. She takes the pieces of me and gives it back to me whole. And that is what I feel it is to be understood, where somebody can pick up all of the shards of you, the way that society's broken you, and present it back to you. And even if they're not, they're just like you, they're just all over the place. We're all trying to put ourselves back together. We're trying to remember ourselves again and our divinity again. Yeah. So you're trying to put yourself back together. When you feel understood, when you are in true communion with somebody, they can help you put those pieces back together where you truly see yourself. Yeah. What we're finding in a lot of relationships is that we got, whatever those relationships manifest as, is that you're being given parts of you discombobulated, and they're like, look, it's you. Yeah. And then your reaction is that, no, that's not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has my elements because, it is of me, but you have not put it together properly. Yes. And I think that it's important to realize that and to say to yourself, how were they taught to put me together? Yeah.
Yeah, it's true.
So in corporate environments, how were they taught to put me together? Because the corporate environment relies on everybody's
fitting a
homogeneity.
Footprint.
Like, we all need to be, you all have to wear your suits, you all have to wear it. You imagine you came into work in a pink suit. Yeah. That would be frowned upon as well, because you're moving away from it. And actually the uniformity allows for the hierarchy to be rigidly in place.
Yes. Yes.
Anybody starts having personalities, everybody starts doing, the hierarchy won't hold. No. And they need it to hold. Yes. So you can believe that in the snowy white peaks and believe that they actually know what the hell they're doing when most times they don't have a clue. They just lucked out. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think about that cis-het comment, the cis-het Black man comment, and you would expect that black men would be the ones to get it. And I feel like there are those who do, and they get it so well.
Yeah.
When we're looking at general conversation, general discourse that I see taking place on social media, I use that as an example. It seems like there are a lot of people who don't get it, and they don't get it because they fail to understand that as real as racism is to them, sometimes they will even say to you that it's not real.
Honestly,
in order to have the things, the benefits that's promised of white supremacist heteropatriarchy, they will also agree that it's not real. And then they stop going to the barbers, and then we have what we have. You know, but that's another story. But sticking to what we're talking about, some of them understand that racism is real, but they don't take sexism to be valid.
No.
And so they can't see how then those things cross over,
Interlink,
and then you'll now have misogynoir.
Yes.
They don't get it. They'll be like, well, no, I agree with you on racism, but sexism, no, you're meant to care for me, because they need you to.
What do you bring to the table?
But they need you to ascribe to what patriarchy promises them in regards to sexism, so they can then fulfill their role in what it means to be a man.
Yes.
And actually, everything is a construct.
Yes.
None of it is real. We are all performing each and every one of these roles. So at any point, we can say between ourselves, I don't want to do this anymore, because the suicide rates are mad.
Yeah.
The suicide rates tell us that men are not happy. No. Black men are not happy within the confines of white supremacist heteropatriarchy. However, they have not been allowed the tools, due to the way that they've been socialized in society, to extricate themselves, deviate from what they've been told is the norm.
Even ask for help, even to apply that knowledge and say, okay, it's that element of, you know, toxic masculinity, hypermasculinity. I'm a man. I'm not gonna safe up when I need it. But you're suffering in silence, and then taking that out on your partner or on your other environments that you are faced with. I just think it's shocking. And again, it's a larger, I guess it's a larger discourse.
It's a larger discourse, and I'm very careful to not vilify
100%.
them, because we are all trying to navigate something that we did not choose.
No, we didn't.
And they saw a framework. We all saw, so many of us saw a particular framework in our households and in our families and in our cultures. Yeah. And then you are just trying to perform those households, perform those frameworks that you've seen, or live within those frameworks. Because I have spoken to many Black women who consider themselves to be extremely progressive, all of these things. The moment that we start talking about marriage, what are you doing about your surname? Oh no, I can't wait to take my husband's last name. Why? What do you want there? What do you want there? Why is he not taking yours?
I've had that conversation.
Because what? Go on.
Yeah.
And so it just goes to show how deeply embedded so many of these notions are. And while somebody might get one thing, they absolutely cannot accept the other thing. Yeah. And so none of us are free of that, because there'll always be a sticking point. There'll always be the point where it's just like, oh, I can't go. I don't think that I can go beyond this, but you can. You can. And it's going beyond that point that then you start to move towards liberation, because anything that you're doing before that is for the playground as far as I'm concerned. So I think about this conversation, and I think about the ways that we're misunderstood. The misunderstanding is intentional.
100%.
The confusion, the strategized confusion is intentional 100%. Because as Toni Morrison said, the very real function of racism is distraction. Yes. If we are distracted from our liberation by spending time explaining who we are and not being who we are, because we talk about, oh, you're a human being, not a human doing. Doing is distraction.
Yes.
So for you're a monkey, look at you and you're a monkey ape girl. Oh, I'm not a monkey ape girl because I breathe just like you. And when you cut me, I bleed too. I don't
have time for that.
And so's your mum. Let's keep it moving. Literally. Because if I'm a monkey ape girl, your mum's a monkey ape girl. That's fine. We're all monkey ape girls then. Yeah. Let's keep it moving. Like,
Homo sapiens, right? We're Homo sapiens, right? Respectfully.
Darwin was spitting at some point, apparently. Yeah. So, okay, let's keep it moving. Fine.
Yeah.
There comes a point where you have to, they talk about it in a lot of Eastern philosophy. You have to detach from what is happening in order that you're not distracted, so that you might continue. Within Yoruba cosmology, they talks about the fact that the earth is a marketplace. Yeah. You've only come here to sell your wares. Do not be distracted by the noise of the market. Yeah. A lot of us, because of the way that white supremacist heteropatriarchy operates, we've been distracted by the noise of the market. You have to start tuning out the noise of the market and think, what did I come here to do? What wares did I come here to sell? Yeah. Not in that sort of capitalist sense, but what did I come to give this world of me? And focus on that, because everything else is literally a distraction. Them not understanding, you understand me because when you need me to do something, you know exactly what to say.
You know where to find me, you know what to say. Touch back to your the tech company that came to you for that campaign. You knew exactly what to do and you wanted my time and effort. But the minute it came to expressing myself in totality, you want to come here and then tell me how I should reflect myself to then fit your portrayal of how you see me as a Black woman. It's absolutely shocking. And to even attest to what's on the screen here, out of 22 respondents, it doesn't reflect here on the screen, unfortunately, but 11, the word yes appeared 11 times, which I thought was quite significant. The word experience doesn't show. Oh, it does show on here. Experience, you see it's as a big image here. It reflected 6 times in the survey and on this word graph as well. And tying into what we've said about relationships and how we navigate ourselves as Black women to, I guess, divert from the portrayal. One thing that I wanted to sort of highlight was that slavery in itself was the place where relationships were constructed for Black women, whether that be in the exploitation of Black women in their bodies, but also in understanding, you know, as a Black woman that, you know, that works, you know, how not saying that I apply that to myself now because I actively work in my own Black womanhood, of course, but in terms of how, you know, in terms of the consequences of slavery in regards to, you know, the work scheme, capitalism, for example.
The imperialist structure that we live within. I think that is important to note because even if we're talking about Black women in the workplace, when it's time to charge for our services, there is that. So I always believe as a, you know, director and directing theatre, I often say to the actors that I'm working with that I want you to read the text. Then after you read the text, I want you to tell me what everything is about without using anything to do with the text, because there's the conversation that we see happening on the page and then there's the subtextual conversation and I'm interested in the subtextual conversation. So when you ask me to provide my services to you, that, oh my God, Kelechi, we love, I just love everything that you're doing. I think you're so amazing. Like you're so inspiring. So we'd love for you to speak on this panel, but we'd love for you to speak. You haven't mentioned the pay. Okay, I will speak on the panel. I charge however much I charge. Because the thing is, our budget doesn't stretch that far. You are a liar from the pits of hell, because when it's a white woman, you pay more than that. Because I should actually be able to charge more than that, but you don't want to pay me that because you don't think that I'm worth that. Why?
Yes, honestly,
Because then when we now get on that panel, everybody's bodied. It's a massacre. I'm taking everybody out. I'm taking everybody with the theory. Everybody's getting taken out. But then they've gotten paid 3 times more than I have. And I remember Lovey Ajayi, she talked about an incident that happened like that. She was on stage with a white woman, only to find out afterwards. They told her that they didn't really have a budget, only for her to find out that woman was paid, I think she said about $15,000. So what, did you not have a budget anymore because you gave her all the money? And then you're expected to be grateful that they even asked you in the first place, but you can't pay me in exposure. I'm already exposed. Like I'm out here. I wear sunscreen to avoid exposure. Give me my money. And so it's about moving away from gratitude, moving away from not being paid what you're worth, because the subtextual conversation that is taking place all of the time is that you should be glad that we asked you in the first place, but you couldn't ask anybody else.
No. And it's funny you said it, because I've had an experience in my professional line of work where someone approached me to do a panel. I was like, fantastic, yeah, sure thing. I'd done it for them before unpaid, but at that point in time I wasn't experienced and I wasn't a bother for me. It's for me, I'm trying to level up. So it was fine. So the second time around they came to ask me, and I was like, hey, so in terms of budget and payment, what are we thinking? They were like, oh, we don't have same line. We don't have a budget right now. But I know the function of your event because I've spoken at your event before. I know how much your tickets cost.
Exactly.
I know how much they cost. Don't tell me that. So I had to literally travail, and then I finally got paid. But it was just, it's that, so I call it song and dance. It's that song and dance of having to make sure that, again, as Black women, you're valid, like what's the word? You're valid in the eyes of your own academy, in the eyes of your own, experience as well. Why are you asking me for my own life experience or frame of reference or my expertise? Like you said, I'm bodying people. When you put me on a panel, just know that hiring the best of the best.
Literally,
you're getting good quality. Do you know what I mean? So you're going to give me the respect that is due towards me. And again, that actually ties really well into in regards to, you know, the relationships in the general scheme of things. And Sojourner Truth sticks out to me in her phrase, "Ain't I a woman?" So Sojourner Truth was a woman that lived in the 1800s and was a slave as well, but she was prominent in the feminist movement in terms of she was able to shake the discourse, which was heavily centered around white feminism. But her approach to her feminism was on the basis of identifying that the level of oppression that Black women faced, but particularly the fact that in black womanhood, in Black women that were enslaved, that they were also women too. They were also valid in their femininity as well. And I think this gives us a really nice sort of movement when we talk about femininity in a larger sense. And again, in a larger sense, I want to talk about, you know, motherhood. Now, in my own sort of research and looking around, I found out that the 19th century was when conversation around, you know, what's the term? Voluntary motherhood, contraception was actually brought about. And that was where, of course, the conversation of sex being seen outside of conceiving for children or outside of the male gaze per se was introduced. But again, as we see, that excluded Black women in that conversation. But I wanted to look at, you know, Black motherhood in a sense, and what your thoughts are as a mother yourself. You know, how have you felt how have you experienced life? How have you navigated life in your own portrayal of, well, society's, there we go, we got there in the end. Society's portrayal of motherhood for you versus your own navigation of motherhood and what that meant to you.
Yeah, I think that's interesting as a question, because even thinking about Sojourner Truth, I've seen people arguing back and forth about whether she even said that. Because they talk about, they said she spoke one kind of language, was it French or something or Dutch that she spoke, so she wouldn't have spoken in that way. But I'm like, the point is still being made. She did the thing. She still went to the court. So can we focus on what has been said?
Distraction.
Distraction again. So we cite Tarana Burke as conceiving the Me Too movement.
Yes.
I say that her earlier collaborator was Sojourner Truth.
Wow.
And Black women like her, because they were forced to work in environments where they were being sexually assaulted.
Yes.
And they went to court on that basis. And they needed white women to say, they are women as well. So take it seriously what they're saying. Yeah. You know, and the very few white women wanted to do that. Yeah. So for it to be taken seriously as sexual assault, they first had to be considered woman. Yeah. Yeah. And I think about that even when I think about motherhood, and we talk about, you know, contraception and things like that.
Yes.
And dating it to around the 19th century. But we know that in indigenous practices, in our own cultural practices, things have existed for centuries. Ceremonies, rituals have existed for centuries that women just kept amongst themselves. Yeah. There is an art to shutting the hell up. Yeah. And so it came into mainstream, albeit white consciousness when it did. But we've been knowing. Yeah. I'm a huge fan of
gatekeeping. Gatekeep what is ours.
Not everybody, please.
Everyone doesn't need to know.
No. And so looking at all of these things, considering how Black women are viewed in the conversations around womanhood, and then considering motherhood, I think that there is some beauty in existing in the liminalities. Black women aren't really considered women in the same way that white women are in modern consciousness. They're not. Yes. And I see Black women arguing up and down all day, every day on the internet saying, but I am a woman and I find it insulting when you're saying that I'm not. Yeah. It's the same way that we're not really, as Black people, considered human. Nobody's saying that you're not a human. Yes. We're just saying that within this realm, you're just not seen the same way. Yes. It doesn't take away from your humanity. Yes. Well, it does. But it doesn't to me. Yeah. But to them, it does. Yeah. That's all that's being highlighted to you. So when you're talking about motherhood, I think it's that same thing of like, I had to look at it and be like, within this conversation, within this discourse that's happening, I'm intentionally being left out. Yeah. Who was nursing your babies, your white babies? Who was nursing them?
The Black women. Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you now decided that you wanted this to be part of your aesthetic or part of your zhuzh, then it became a whole other thing. And we're talking about middle class, upper class white women at this point. Working class white women, they were doing their things. They were sorting themselves out.
Yeah.
They would have still been dealing with all of the, or perpetrating or perpetuating anti-blackness, but they were having their own struggles, right? Yeah. But when we think about middle class, upper class white women, you weren't even doing your job. And you say middle class, upper class white women now that you're doing all the mummy clubs and you're deciding who's making all of the money from these mummy blog sites? White women. Which mother has caused me the most harm on social media? Clemmy Hooper, the biggest mummy blogger in the UK at that point, but your page is gone now. Well, she took it down herself, but it's the fact that like you could have a burner account, insult black mothers from your burner account, insulting other white mothers from your burner account, until the day that you're discovered. And you're a midwife as well.
A midwife?
A midwife as well. And I don't know what they've done regarding her PIN. I just don't quite know yet.
A midwife delivering babies.
I made sure people wrote to the NMC because I want her badge.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
But they're saying that they're still investigating because the pandemic slowed them down or whatever. But whatever. But I say all of that to say that even in their mothering, their white womanhood mothering, whatever they've got going on, they're still allowed to be violent.
Yes.
And a black woman raising her voice at a child is like, oh no, we need to take him away from you because you're just...
Yeah.
So I thought to myself, I don't want to be a part of any mummy groups. The moment that I found out that I was pregnant with my son, I knew straight away I didn't want to be part of any mummy groups. I didn't want to be a mumfluencer. I didn't want to do any of that because everything meant that I would have to ascribe to a version of motherhood that actually was synonymous with white women. And I want no parts in any of that. No. So I will go on the pole with my son. Like when I'm pole dancing, I'll have him on the pole. I was still poling when I was pregnant. When I go for my runs, I've got him in his like buggy and I'll do all of that. And I'll play my music. I'll be talking the way that I talk. I do believe in like progressive parenting in that, you know, we have to emulate some of the things that we may not have seen growing up. So I'm very particular about that, but giving him space to be who he is and for his spirit to shine. And I've learned a lot about myself through that. But again, being subjected to even during childbirth, having the healthcare professionals not listening to me. Like, you don't know. Why wouldn't I know? Like, I know my body. And literally I'm qualified in knowing my body. What are you talking about? But not listening. I said that my water broke, I think it was like on a Tuesday or Wednesday. My waters was broken. Went to them. I was like, my waters are broken. But I waited because you said you should get to this, wait for contractions and da. And the way that they were so dismissive. No, it couldn't have broken.
I've told you.
No, because it could have been wheat. Okay. But I'm telling you that it did. Cut to Saturday. Oh my God.
Tuesday to Saturday.
Tuesday to Saturday. Cut to Saturday. And it's like, oh, you don't have any front waters. I know, because I told you that when I came in on Wednesday. That Tuesday night it was, oh no, panic, antibiotics, like the panic. But if you just listen to me, because they were, and during that time they were doing like the cervical checks and stuff. So everybody was flinging up their finger, glove or not, to check.
My God.
And you just did not listen. And that wasn't the first time that I've had an issue with them with a pregnancy where they were not listening to me. So I had to like process all of those things, and the pain, the contraction, the delay, the long labor was all because he just wasn't turning around. He was like back to back. He just wasn't wanting to turn. So, and he came out in that position as well. And it just was what it was. But what I noticed in that situation, and it wasn't just from white nurses or midwives or whatever, it was from black midwives as well. And what it made me intimately aware of was the fact that everybody's taught from the same textbook. So when we're talking about white supremacy, when we're talking about decolonizing the curriculum, everybody's taught from the same textbook. The same textbook, it was a Pearson's textbook that actually was saying how when black people talk about their pain, they're likely to play up the pain. The same textbook that described the pelvic structure of black women as ape-like. And it's only recently that they pulled it off the shelves. And so if you're saying for the past few decades, everybody's been learning everything they know from this same book. And whether black, white, whatever, everybody's been learning the same level of education from the same book.
Yes.
Of course, they're then going to come and perpetuate white supremacy, because that is what for them to pass their test, they had to learn that.
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't talk about, like, that is the violence of the educational system. That in order for you to pass, you also have to be in collusion with white supremacy.
Yeah. And it's you know, it's ironic that you touch on medical racism, because, you know, a lot of the time when, you know, there are unfortunate fatalities in medical racism, a lot of the time people are like, oh, you know, people tend to learn the buzzwords and the statistics that come through, like, you know, 1 in 4 black women die in childbirth, you know, what's going on in the UK? 43% of black women are more likely to miscarry even with an IVF. People are quick to have these, you know, statistics and quips ready and to sort of send out, but again, there's no action on, you know, challenging these statistics. There's no action making sure that black women aren't fatalities in your institution in itself.
But Parliament has said that they have no plans to address it anytime soon. Like, literally said that they have no plans to address it anytime soon. And so that tells us something, and it then becomes, but it comes back to us, blaming ourselves, it being our problem, you know, being told that, oh, maybe you just have like, it's a language barrier. No, it's none of that. And it's not a class issue as well, because we saw Serena Williams experience similar. And Serena Williams is rich as hell.
Yeah.
So if she's also not being listened to during her birthing experience, then that means that it goes beyond class, it goes beyond access to money. It then is pretty much Beyonce, a traumatic birthing experience.
Yeah.
The medical, the healthcare industry just needs to change. The whole landscape, it needs to change. But when we consider, was it James Marion Sims, that created the speculum, he tested out all the prototypes, all the things he wanted to do on enslaved black women without anesthesia. So literally the innovations that we have now, again, when we talk about emotional labor, physical labor of black women, that was where it came from. So everyone's praising him. You'll name departments after him. You'll name this, you'll do this, you'll do that. But he was violent.
Wow, to say the least. But even, you know, carrying on from that, and one thing that I do want to move on to, actually, especially in regards to the violence that was, you know, impacted on black women, when we talk about, well, in the context of dating as a, you know, as a romantic relationship, as a romantic plight, and again, the hypersexualization of black women, you know, I want to really preface here that the fetishization of black women is derivative of the sexual violence that black women were privy to whilst enslaved. So I'm talking about the rape, the sexual violence inflicted on black women, the forced births that black women had to endure during that time period. And in fact, one thing that isn't really known, and I actually learned this recently, which, you know, was shocking to me, that black women performed self-abortions on themselves because they did not want the risk of having their children coming out to relive the same traumatic and intergenerational cycle that we talk about.
And then think about contraception being mentioned in the 19th century and us talking about these things being way before that, and finding methods and ways way before that. Toni Morrison's Beloved, for that very reason, the protagonist kills her daughter at the beginning of that story for that very reason, because she does not want her daughter specifically to experience the brutality of enslavement.
Yeah. And again, it's another thing that's just like, I say shocking and I say it's sad, but I feel like those words are just, I guess it's exhausted now. I feel like it has no meaning anymore. And again, with that, in looking at, you know, distraction, looking at the emotional labor that you've mentioned, physical labor, the larger discourse that surrounds black women, another thing that came to mind was, you know, the hypervigilance that black women, well, we mentioned this in the first section of this podcast, hypervigilance that can come with black womanhood. And Mikki Kendall does reference that in terms of looking at ignorance, in terms of, you know, challenging oppression. One thing that is used a lot is the distraction, dismissal, but also as a means to inform social dominant theory. So, for example, if a certain demographic or group of people are oppressed, yet they don't have a socially dominant standing, to the dominant individual, it looks like they are complicit in that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to preface this and say, as a general example, let's say with the Conservative leadership contest at the moment, we are talking about there are 67 million people in the UK. Okay, we're the 6th richest country in the world that is now currently about to go into a recession, but that's for a different day. Now, with the choice between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, because the Conservative Party have actually stopped giving accurate numbers, this is an estimate. The Conservative Party have an estimate of 180,000 members. That is 0.2% of the population of the UK. So you're telling me that they have the power to elect a new leader, and I'm going to use Rishi Sunak here. His words, not mine, so please don't come for me. Well, no, actually, please come for me. His words in looking at deprived urban areas, he said. Now, tying into what I've said about 0.2% of the population, if you're talking about marginalized communities as deprived urban areas, and yet the 0.2% could be electing you into office, that then tells you and tells your government that us, as these 67 million people, are complicit in your maltreatment of us.
Yeah.
That is not the case. That is not the truth. And I think that is one way that you can apply that to relationships as well, and to the imbalance that can come in certain relationships and the navigation of them as well. And I think that's quite, interesting. But I kind of want to go back in time, really. Back in topic, and touch upon experience here. I'm going to talk about experience in the regards to relationships, just to round off this section. Now, speaking of relationships, we mentioned this individual, Kelechi, but I would like to invite you in joining me to take a minute of silence to honor the legacy of Kevin Samuels. Moving swiftly, very, very swiftly on. Anyways, so for those who don't know, you should know by now, again, Kevin Samuels was a self-declared image consultant. He was someone that was, unfortunately, and we will touch upon this, was highly revered within the Black community.
Oh, God.
I would say that his ideology follows into red pill ideology, which is incelhood. So for those who don't know, the red pill ideology is derived from the Matrix, which is seeing the truth. I don't know what truth there is in oppression, but we digress. Now, in looking, and I had to really look at his videos, unfortunately, I had to watch some of his videos just to really get a sense of what I was coming into here. And some of the language that he's used here, I thought was quite again, shocking. So, for instance, he references women as feminine, beautiful and reasonable, which I thought was really interesting, the reasonable perspective. So if a woman has an opinion, then they're unreasonable. Okay, that's what came to mind. There is a well-known video, actually, I don't know if you've seen it, where there's a Black woman
who called in.
Yes, and she was like, "Oh, I'm 35, blah blah blah," and he goes, "You do not have options. The men who want you on." Yeah. It's the vitriol for Black women for me. It's the audacity for me. It's the knowing that he died alone with poor health for me. But we digress.
Red Bull took them wings.
Clip them right off. Clip. But one thing that I really wanted to, actually, the reason why I'm mentioning this individual is because of the platform they had. They had 1.52 million subscribers on YouTube.
And you died
alone. Now, this person also said, no, I digress. After I was looking at the comments in his videos, one comment that stood out to me actually which was quite okay, and tells me that there is a larger conversation about education within the Black community, especially, not to vilify, but just in a general sense. One person said, Black women want to have a feminist mindset, so why not get the real thing, a white woman? Which I thought was really interesting, really, really interesting.
That's good, because even they noticed that feminism, as we see it, was for white women
in the white lens,
and that's why we have the other types of feminism that we talk about.
100%. It's just confirmation, isn't it? But even so, Kevin Samuels' legacy, and I really want to clarify this, Kevin Samuels' legacy was derogatory against Black women. It was ageist, it was predatory, it was disgusting, it was defamatory, it was disrespectful, to say the very least, against Black women. And I think the thing that sort of ties it all off for me was, I'm sure you've seen this, but another Black woman called in and she mentioned about her children and what she would do if her children said to her that, you know, she was being sexually assaulted by their partner. And Kevin Samuels said in response to her, kids lie.
Yep.
Now, statistically speaking, if you can check this out, Black adolescent girls are statistically more at risk of sexual assault in the home.
Yep.
So for him to say that and the thing is, this is what's so polarizing about Kevin Samuels is because, you know, he's a Black man and his I call him a white supremacist in Black skin, you know, like his legacy is someone that is a Black man to issue such harm, to issue such sentiments, to reiterate the white supremacist patriarchal society that we live in, the ideals that follow that, I think are absolutely disgusting. And again, in us joking about and keeking about it, I'm sure there's going to be a few comments in saying, how dare you? How can you do this? And even when
Black women don't know how to respect Black men.
Do you know what I mean? Even when he died, I remember seeing like social media was split in half.
And that was my day. Lord, if we're talking about chaos, oh, I love chaos. Yeah. That was the day I was like, I'm going to troll the hell out of everybody in this situation. Anybody that believed anything that he said and thought that there was any sort of rationale that could be substantiated, I'm going to ruin you today.
Honestly, and I thought that was super, especially in the Black women community, like as Black women as a community of our own, the fact that I'd say a large percentage of us, because there, as we mentioned before, there are some Black women that unfortunately do perpetuate the same level of oppression that we do face. But there was a large percentage of Black women that I saw who, you know, were rejoicing in that aspect, including myself.
Yeah, but there were lots, and I like that. And I think that it should be allowed for us to be public about the people that we have disdain for. And I don't believe in this whole don't speak ill of the dead. I will speak ill of whoever I want to speak ill of, or about, depending on how they've treated me. This whole reverence for the dead, I believe that for people who were honourable in their life.
Yes.
If you were not, Prince Philip, you get what you get. Yeah. You really get what you get. Yeah. And I was surprised by certain Black men who were popping up to be like, oh, I can't believe that people are laughing at his death. Ovi. You said all of how many words on Love Island? I don't even watch the show. Yeah. When the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, NSARS, all of them, you were pimped. But over Kevin, that's who you can come and type for. That's who you've got Twitter fingers for.
Honestly, it was...
And even like Donald Glover platforming him in the most recent season of Atlanta.
I was shocked.
Literally, but I thought that was so interesting. Literally, all the people that Black women have gone, harm. Chet Hanks, all these people that they were like, I don't know about that. You went and gave them more of a platform and paid them. Yeah. Paid them. Gave them more money.
Yes.
Money equals access, power. Yes. You gave them more of that.
Yes.
Because why? It could only be misogynoir.
Yeah, only. That's the only explanation I can even afford to.
But in regards to Kevin Samuels, all of the words you used to describe him, accurate. Yep. Another word I'd used to describe him is slick.
Yes.
He was I despise him. Yeah. But my God, he was slick with it.
He was clever.
He was slick with it. That suit. Now thinking about the fact that if we panned out, if we panned out, he was just in a little studio flat, probably. You know,
boxes.
And the thing is, I love cute studio flats. What we're saying is that he presented himself as this this great mind that, you know, what you want is a high value man, but you 35, you got kids, you can't get no high value man. Yeah. And he was delivering all of these things in such a tone that is actually the tone that an abuser would use.
Yes.
Not raising their voice.
Yes.
But saying things to break you down and break down your self-esteem. I don't believe in blaming the oppressed for their oppression, but every time my mind was blown by Black women calling in to ask him for advice. But there is a whole industry for that. That one that cheated on his wife and then she had on her bonnet of salvation. Derek Jackson or whatever he called himself. Another one that there is a whole industry for men, specifically Black men, if we're talking about in this situation, who tell you that they've got the secret. Act like a lady, think like a man. That they've got the secret that will get you into the mind frame of a man, and thus you can acquire one, and then you will, you'll attain one, and then you would have surpassed all the expectations required of you in this society. But no, you've got to keep him happy, and you can't get fat, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. Like, don't get old, don't get sick. Like, all of these things you can have. And then people will look at you as having worth because your worth is linked to whether you have a man with you. And he played up on that. He was able to make all of this money that he's got nothing to show for it now. But, he could do all of these things. Derek Jackson, again, he could release all of this merch. All that book, books. Think Like a Man. I think even at one point in my throes of unconsciousness, I might have even quoted something from it because there is something about the slickness of these things.
It's so impressive.
That they catch you. They catch you at your most vulnerable. And ultimately, everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to belong. There are those of us, there are certain demographics in this world that are told by society that they cannot have that. And so any person who seems to be offering you the elixir, the tool that will finally get you this thing, of course you're going to listen. And then meanwhile, he's using that to validate men and asking for men to not have anything really to hold, because you're a gold digger if you expect a man to have any sort of financial robustness, but you're also trash for not sticking with the broke ones while they make it.
It's the philosophy of him, and also I'm going to caveat Andrew Tate in this as well. It's the fact that the objectification of women comes through the pipeline of wealth. If a man is wealthy, then therefore he has the right, I'm going to say right in quotation marks, to objectify you, to abuse you, to say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I say this all the time, especially to his fan base. You have a fragile, minuscule sense of masculinity. You have a very fragile sense of identity if you're basing it on the sole purpose of a woman, let alone someone that probably if they had sense, would reject you at the first instance of you even approaching them. But then you
reject a man and then you get killed.
That is on the other hand as well.
The violence that women experience in society is no joke. And then men will be like, yeah, but men experience violence too. From who? From who? Look at you catching yourself in your own life. From who? Because, of course, it's not a lie in that men experience violence too, but who perpetuates the violence that men experience? Also men. So it looks like the common denominator is men, but men who are trying to ascribe to what they've been told by white supremacist patriarchy is masculinity. That is where they're struggling. It's also holding them hostage. The same way it's holding everybody else hostage, it's also holding them hostage. So it's in all of our best interest to deconstruct this mechanism, to disempower this mechanism that's trying to hold us all against our will and not allowing us to live to the true expansiveness 100%. Of our own divinities or our individual and collective divinity. That is what we should be focusing on, and they don't get it. Men get killed too. Who kills them? Who kills them? Is it not you?
Honestly,
Brutu? Do you not kill? Is it
the mirror?
Not you?
The mirror.
Michael Jackson done told you. What was he looking at? The man?
In the mirror.
Okay. All right then.
Literally. And you've actually segued really nicely into this because Moya Bailey, again, Moya Bailey talks about digital alchemy, and that in reference, she calls it social media magic, actually, social media magic. And that is the use of social media platforms to combat, systems of injustice and to bring, light to these things. Now, I want to really talk about your experience in regards to incel Twitter that happened earlier this year in April. And again,
was it April?
It was April, yeah.
Wow, time flies when you're dragging Nick cells.
Yeah. But without going into too much detail, like again, your experience with that, the portrayal that was expected of you, and the memes that came out. And again, I think memes are a great way to, establish mutual understanding. But also, I think when we're talking about serious things and issues, they can desensitize the individual from the core, the crux of the issue, such as, it wasn't only just you, it was yourself, it was Oloni, and it was Gabriella Wade's trans daughter, that Zaya Wade, that were at the vitriol, at the receiving end of this vitriol. And I remember one person mentioned exterminating you, which I thought was completely
myself and Oloni,
completely left field. But quickly, dropping onto that, I'm sure you've spoken about how it made you feel, but what were your initial thoughts?
It's funny because I didn't have any.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not new to me. It's not new to me having this pocket of social media who are so intimidated by my presence, my knowledge, my charisma, all of that. A culmination of just basically not needing their validation. If you've been socialized to believe that the thing that you have, that women need, Black women specifically need from you, is your validation, and to this person it is worthless, that is going to make you feel less of a person. And so you're going to react to that, and you're going to do everything in your power to make it so, or hoping that you can break them down enough so they will need that validation from you. But I just don't want it. I don't require it. I'm all right. And I think that has been the ongoing, the ongoing problem, or the ongoing issue in 2018. And, they've been at this for years, the same group of recurring names. They've been at this for years. And when they thought that they'd really gotten a foothold was 2018. I remember vividly only having experienced a pregnancy loss a couple of months or a few months prior to that. Thank you. And this episode came out of an American talk show, panel show, whatever. And they were talking about whether you can be pro-Black and be in an interracial relationship. And people who were on the panel were like, well, Kelechi's always, tackling all of these issues, and she's got a white partner. For some reason, the internet blew up, and it was like, oh my God, I didn't know her partner was white. You knew. So why are you doing all of this? And it wasn't being hidden. I don't have anything to explain to anybody. I will do what I want to do.
And it's your right to do so.
Right, but apparently no, Black women don't have choices. And you can only be making choices from a space of trauma, never just agency and autonomy. And regardless of how you feel about that, you could be like, it's problematic. You can't be saying these things and then dating this person. This individual, though, they don't actually tie in with this narrative that you're talking about. Because we've just said that we're not all a monolith. So, but again, I digress. Fine. So 2018, they were one of the things that I noticed that was so funny that I will mention till Kingdom Come. One of them, Chizo Lifts, I think is his name. He's meant to be a personal trainer. He does all of these things. He said to the rest of them, they were all tagged. He had a video. I did a collaboration with Experian Credit Report, and I had my partner in the video with me, and they were sending that video between themselves back and forth, and he said something like, oh, but don't you remember I sent you this video in the group chat 6 months ago? I knew it would come in handy one day. He's still operational. He's still doing his thing. And any police report that wants it, it's always in there. I will make sure to have it everywhere, because it's important to note that you have said in public that you are all collating some kind of, in your group chat, images of me and my partner or whatever. You're all collating all of these things for over 6 months. For what? But then you'll say, she's not even attractive. So I'm not attractive, but you're spending a disproportionate level of time focused on me. So what is it then? What are you so enthralled by? Just infatuated with that you won't let me be? And I was surprised by the women that would call themselves Black feminists or whatever, who were in there red card. Again, what you said about memes and desensitizing this posted, but you claim that you listen to the podcast and you're a supporter of mine, but you were there in the midst of the violence, wanting to collude with them. Again, the things that people would do for their own survival, it's always interesting to see. Mad. So then we get to 2021, they're still having similar conversations. And then this time I just thought, you know what? this will be your last time. Because when we're getting to the subject of exterminating is a really strong word. You've just said on a public platform that you thought was private because they thought that it was a private group that they'd created that nobody could see, but unfortunately for them, they're not smart. And you said that somebody said Oloni needs to be exterminated, and you said and that Kelechi too.
Wow.
Or however they phrased it. And I thought this is the time to take action and make it known everywhere that this is what we're dealing with. And these pockets of the internet are forming where they're like, oh, we can't be seen. So that was only that community that they thought that they created had only been in existence for about 24 to 36 hours, and they'd already gotten to and they'd already talked about killing Zaya Wade, or that Dwayne Wade should kill her. He should do a Chris Benoit, as they phrased it. They'd already, within those number of hours, they'd already started with that. So what would they have done if that had gone on for a week, a month, years? So we can't take it lightly that there are partnered men in those groups who are still behaving like incels, because the hatred of women is something that a lot of these men can build friendships over. Because we live in a society of men, like a man-loving society. Women are merely conduits for the love that they want to show to each other, or the infatuation that they have with each other. And women are merely conduits to that. Like, look at the woman I've got. Are you impressed? That's all it is. Look at how I've treated this woman. Are you impressed? I killed her. Are you impressed? It's literally for each other. And so I made the podcast episode because I just felt to myself like, Zaya Wade has no clue that you lot are doing any of this. And even if she does, I hope she never does, because she doesn't deserve to constantly keep seeing all of this vitriol. So no, Oloni will choose to deal with it in the way that she wants to deal with it. If at all, that's up to her. Me and my household, I'm taking you all out. Like, I'm taking you all out.
You and your household.
And because, again, if you want to remain within the confines of the black lady, or all of these, like, what's respectable, you will die there. You will literally die there. I mean, we're all going to die anyway. But my point is, like, you will be miserable there, and you will never have spoken your truth. So it's just best to, as Audre Lorde said, like, just say what you need to say, because either way.
I completely agree. And it's ironic that you touch on that, because, when we talk in the black community, whenever these conversations are had, it's usually on the other hand, protect black women. And it's like, well, you don't do that, because if we're talking about people such as, Megan Thee Stallion, as we've mentioned already, Serena Williams, Belly Majinga, Oluwatoyin Sayu, Blessing Oshagan, Nicole Bibbert and Henry Smallman, which, again, the Met Police, again, I have time for you, but it's for another episode. All these black women that were unlawfully harmed and they weren't protected. And for those who don't know, actually, last week, Thursday, in the case of Breonna Taylor, the officers that murdered her, the FBI charged Joshua James, and I want people to know their names, Joshua James, Carl Meany, Brett Hankinson, and Kelly Goodlett, all with civil rights offences, unlawful conspiracies, and obstruction offences. And also the FBI, it's written here, reports that they believe that the Kentucky Police Department falsified her no-knock warrant, which, of course, another black man, Daniel J. Cameron, the Attorney General, another white supremacist in black skin, reinforced that cycle. And again, in talking about what you've mentioned in dealing with people like this and in holding people like this accountable, it's a shame that Breonna Taylor had to, unfortunately, her soul has now gone to rest, but her legacy, only 2.5 years later, that now her murderers are seeing justice. It's a shame that you've had to resort to having to drag people out. That community, I believe, was shut down, I think, immediately once they were outed. So again, in looking at experience, looking at being black women, and looking at, your time, the time that it takes for you to even invest in that, it's quite a lot.
But now they've got circle tweets, they've got all of these things where it allows them to kind of fester. That's all I see them. I see them as rot that's just like festering somewhere, and you'll just pop up again. That one really, really got them, because I went for the individuals by name. and I just felt like it needed to be done. I've got a platform that is large enough that I'm actually going to say your name, because I want the authorities to find you. Like, let it be down, word for word, these are the people that have done X, Y, Z, because it's important. You trying to, as Megan was doing for Tory, these things will be happening. You don't want to say people's names, because then you'll be seen as the one that's petty. So even when that episode came out, people were like, oh my God, even though these people have done this, this is not the spirit of forgiveness. I don't forgiven for what? For what? I don't have. You told you I have the bone of forgiveness in my body. I have so many Scorpio placements. I will come to your gravesite to laugh.
That elephant that came.
I am the elephant. I am Ellie the elephant. Yeah. I will come to where they've buried you and I will discombobulate that place. You will not rest. So I just don't. Whether it's ladylike or not, whether it's this or not to show for. I don't care. I don't care because you're not. While I'm focusing on my survival, I'm not prioritizing all of that nonsense. Tell them that. Tell them to go and change the ways that they're behaving. But it's funny that you mentioned Megan Thee Stallion, myself, Serena Williams. There's also something about the way that you are built and the complexion of your skin. Megan Thee Stallion slightly lighter, but still her features very much, black. And all of these things, I think that what happened to Megan, because she's got the build that she's got, she's tall, she's statuesque, literally fitting into the name choice that she's made. And because she talks so confidently about sex, people were almost I was going to say insinuating. No, they were very clear, overtly saying that she deserved what happened to her because, I think somebody even said from what I was told in the clubhouse room that, no, he didn't attack a woman. Look at her height. Look at her build. She's basically a man.
Meanwhile, Tori is down here.
Meanwhile, that devil. So there's something to be said for that. Serena Williams recently announced that she's retiring from the sport and she doesn't want to. And I think that that's another thing as well, that she had to make the choice. People don't get to have that conversation enough as Black women that actually, if I had the choice, I would keep doing this. But I also need to perform this function that I do want to perform. But as a woman, I have to choose.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And there's just so much energy that goes into things like this. And I think, as we round up, and I think it's best for us to round up because we've really been firing shots. But the third and final question, last segment of today's podcast, Playback. Now, the question that I asked Black women finally were, do you feel bound by your own trauma, which we've explained in various contexts? Do you feel bound by your own trauma experienced in navigating society in light of the current socio-political events? Or do you feel empowered? Share how you reclaim your womanhood. So again, you can see what's on the board here. The word trauma pops out quite a lot, but we've spoken a lot about that. One thing that didn't actually show up is the word empowered. Again, I counted this. Empowered popped up 15 times in the responses here. Trauma, even though it's enlarged here, it appeared 12 times in the survey. Now, a few quotes to go through this. Some people said, I feel empowered as because I've gone through trauma, I can teach my children how to deal with this. One other person said, reclaiming my Black womanhood is through creativity, choosing to immerse myself in culture, taking regular breaks away from London and having a circle of friends where I feel represented, but also empowered and understood. Final person said, not at all. I feel empowered. I own my own narrative and no one can deprive me of that. So the final piece really that I want to look at is, reclaiming Black womanhood. What does that look like for us?
Reclaiming Black womanhood will look different for each and every single one of us, and that is okay. All of womanhood, Blackness, everything's constructed for a particular reason, to serve a particular purpose. So you have to look at the purpose that each thing, and as it intersects, what is the purpose that it is meant to serve? Is that the purpose of your life? Is that the purpose that you want to live? If it is not, you have the choice to, as much as possible, to live, outside of that.
Yeah,
you do. We do have that choice. Of course, we know that there are macro aggressions that try to force us back into these roles, whether we like it or not. But in as much as we can in our day-to-day, we have to make the choice to choose ourselves.
Yes.
Because society is clearly not choosing us.
No,
or will choose one of us and make that person the bastion of Black excellence. And then this is where you should all be. Pull up yourselves up by the bootstraps. Look, if they can do it, you can. So representation, politics and all of that stuff, I don't care for it. But for me, reclaiming Black womanhood is about reclaiming my ancestral lineage and my joy and thinking of a future that allows for the expansiveness of the whole being, the whole person, what that looks like. And it's, for me specifically, that's been done through how I'm raising my son. And, my pole dance studio, how that operates, my podcast, and the legacy that I'm leaving behind in a digital form, the writing, the literally the words that I've written in terms of articles and the books that I'll write. You know, I've taken a strategized approach to what is it that I want to convey about what it means for me to be Black and woman, because so far for many years it has meant trauma, but I'm choosing for it to mean peace. I'm choosing for it to mean joy. I'm choosing for it to include expletives. Nobody's going to take that away from me. I love swearing. It makes me so happy. Me too. Until there is no need for it. Do you get me? Like if there comes a point where I'm like, actually, don't need to swear anymore, I will let it go, because also I'm so okay with shedding the parts of me that no longer serve me on the journey that I'm on. I don't need to hold on to things that are only going to like calcify in the crevices of my being for the sake of nostalgia. I don't need that. I don't need to hold on to these things. I can just be. And healing isn't linear. No. So I want to send that healing backwards, as it were, through the ages, through to my ancestors, to my mum who's here, you know, things like that, like my brothers, looking at how I can change things. Reclaiming my Black womanhood means like really standing in the power, really standing in my anger. There are so many things to be angry about in society. So reclaiming my Black womanhood also looks like the children's home that I'm currently building in Lagos, Nigeria.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I don't want you know, young girls to be subjected to tyranny and to be subjected to abuse and all of that. And just because they have been born in Nigeria with the political landscape the way that it is, and they don't have any parents around, doesn't mean that they should not know joy, that they should not know peace, that they should not know fun, that they should not know love and kindness. And so that home will only, I think it should be able to take about 20 children tops, but I want to cap it at 10 for now, you know? And this is not something I'm experienced at. I'm building, you know, the roof went on last week. So it's now built in terms of a structure. Then it's got to be plastered and decorated and the furniture's got to come in, all of that. But I don't feel like I would be using my life the way that I need to use my life if I wasn't taking the money that I'm charging these corporations and all of these things that I'm doing. If I wasn't putting it into something that meant that another group of Black girls wouldn't have to be having this conversation. They can say, I grew up, my birth parents weren't around, or, you know, they passed away, but the home that I grew up in was so loving, and I had all of the things that I needed, and I had all the resources, and there's a resource center that's also attached to it as well, which means that all the things that we take for granted over here, nappies, all of that, I can get all of that over there. I can get all the connections that I've made. I can do all of these web-based
like classes,
courses. So the women in the area, they're not just limited to, I can only sell, I don't know, oranges here. Fam, if you want to sell the oranges, sell the oranges, but also I can make it so that you have a global community that can do something, but always in your agency, always from a space of, because I think that there's a way that we can grow up in the global West, or whichever one you want to see it as, and internalize white saviorism and go there and be like, I know what you need. I'm going to tell you what you need. I don't know what you need, but I believe that I have the resources that if you tell me what you need, I can get it for you.
I can provide.
And that is it. That's all I want to be doing with my Black womanhood, living peacefully, financially abundantly, joyfully, but also connecting people in such a way that they can have the same things.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I relate to that as well. And even in my own navigation of Black womanhood, it's taken me a whole tumultuous journey, a beautiful one nonetheless, in reflection, to even get to a point where I'm here today. You know, if you looked back 5 years ago, I was not the outspoken Black woman I was back then. I used to have white men tell me to my face derogatory slurs, and me be like, that's okay, like in ignorance, in complete ignorance. And it was only through, you know, coming to university and having a completely different entire environment switch in learning and navigating and experiencing life and the harsh realities of myself as a Black woman, that I came to a place where I was like, you know what? No, I don't like the fact that there are structural inequalities. I don't like the fact that people can think that they can get away with treating Black women, not even Black women, Black people as a community, like trash. And that's why I say I like to provoke thought, conversation, and racist, because I will not have you play on the power structure without you thinking that I won't come in and disrupt that. I'm going to disrupt that. If my existence and my very being bothers you, good.
Be bothered.
If my politics bothers you, good. I will never in this lifetime or the next ever stop what I'm doing I'm never stop what I'm gonna ever do. And I think that's one thing that I stand really firmly on. And in terms of reclaiming my Black womanhood, I really rely on, the support network that I have. I'm glad to say that I have Black friends. I have women around me that can support me, that are there to be like, Chantal, you're late, Chantal, this isn't looking quite right. How can we approach this in a different way that are constructive for me? Because I do think Black women, we do need to be nurtured. It's not, like you said, healing isn't linear. We can't be expected to, you're an adult now, you need to just live life on your own. No, we all need support. And we also need that support to, again, inform socio-political climate. So then, again, we have that space, in a social and political manner, to say, I say I take up space, but no, in the social political climate, I take up space. It's that translation that I'm looking at. And to move on from what we've both shared here in the space, and we've covered on this already, reclaiming Black womanhood, as another suggestion, is through discovery, interpretation, and analysis of other works from Black women. Now, Patricia Hill-Collins says that, with Black feminism, not every Black feminist needs to be academic, for instance, because it's
literally classist. Leave me alone.
Do you know what I mean? Like, not everyone has to have a 3
degrees. Let me write a 23 thread about what, leave me alone.
Yeah.
There's some academics that was directed at leave me alone.
Leave her alone. But that's one thing. And, in my case, you are someone that I look up to. You were literally the reason why I do what I do in my activism. So that's, how I've reclaimed my Black womanhood in one sense. In changed behaviours, we have referenced a lot of inconsistencies, injustices that permeate within our community itself, but also externally, also in celebration and appreciation of Black womanhood. That's one way that we can see ourselves outside of our looks and our sexuality, please. Aside from that, again, in having that culture of appreciation, we can then take away the aspect of culture which already discredits Black women, and already distracts from Black women, as we've said. Digital alchemy, we've already mentioned this. Again, using the social spaces. If incels can be doing up 11 billion views on TikTok, so can we. Well, we can do better. 12 billion views, in fact, So that's one element that I really want to draw upon and encourage, women, viewers at home, my non-binary people, everyone at home that identifies within the diaspora. You can do it. You can reclaim your womanhood. You can absolutely tell that person, no, you will not tell me what to do. You will not tell me how to express myself. If I have felt slighted, if I have had an inclination of structural injustice, I have every right to tell you about yourself and your household. Oof. You will not do that to me ever again. Respectfully, Yeah. Like, you will not do that to me. And again, with digital alchemy, we've spoken about social media and posts and, following people. Again, education is free. Black women, as much as we are here and we are culture trendsetters, we're not here to educate you. We've done that, okay? The 53% of Trump supporters, you had that. You had your time.
They're listening and learning. They're busy listening and learning.
It's 2022, man. It's 2022. Yeah. We're done listening and learning. But, we can, as Black women, as people outside that, as allies, those who are wanting to be allies, consistent, okay, and proactive allies. We can, signpost, we can signal boost posts and platforms, but also I do want to highlight disability justice.
Yes.
Again, in a society that is inherently ableist and looking, that's ableist and that represents disabled people as, as in media as like defected beings, as burdens. We need to, as people that are able-bodied as I am, as a tongue twister, as people that are able-bodied, how can I use my privilege in making sure that people that are disabled can get that validity and that visibility to, again, also have that platform to disrupt these systems and disrupt the injustice, again, intersectionality, the many systems of oppression that work to permeate social dominance. So again, I want to wrap up everything that we've said today because we've really dealt through a lot. To listeners at home, whether you're on Spotify or on YouTube, you've been in for a treat, I tell you. But again, with the word clouds we have here, we'll have everything on the screen for you. But again, if you are struggling with your journey in Black womanhood, these are ways that you can, again, attempt to answer the question, attempt to really push that barrier here. And I guess in summary of everything that we have shared here today, in a white supremacist heteropatriarchal society where we see distraction, where we see racism, where we see misogynoir, where we see colorism, where we see abuse, where we see relationships that are marred and tarred and pulled and manipulated, where we see a social climate where identity is so easily accessed and manipulated. The answer of the question as to whether Black women can regain their entire womanhood with everything we've shared, and again, healing isn't linear. It isn't linear. It's going to take a while. But the answer to that question has and is yet to be confirmed. I've been your host, Chantal Kelechi. Thank you so much for tuning in for the first episode of To Be Confirmed. Kelechi, before we sign off, please let the people know where you're at, what you're doing, what's popping.
Well, I have a live show happening Sunday 25th of September. Looking forward to that. It's at Sadler's Wells. I can be found on @Kelechnikov and Kelechnikov Pole Dance Fitness Studios there as well. Podcast Say Your Mind is there as well. But I want to congratulate you on I know the amount of work that you've put into making this happen and how deeply you care.
Thank you.
You have a whole ass script, how deeply you care, because you typed that all out. You've just done phenomenal work. That is something to hold dear. We are to make it through, if we are all to reclaim our Black womanhood, it's because of people like you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I will have all of Kelechi's links shared, description, wherever it will be tagged. In terms of my links, social media handles, my blog. I've got a blog. If you like to be provoked and inspired, you can read my pieces. I have issued a latest piece on the Roe v. Wade abortion rights rubbish, I'm going to say, from the Supreme Court, but that's from a different day. But again, like I said, I have been your host, Chantal Kelechi. Keep your eyes and ears peeled. Keep listening. If you have a problem, please feel free to @ me. I'm more than happy to respond to it. But I'm going to let you go. So thank you so much for joining me. And this has been the first episode of To Be Confirmed. Hey, thank you for joining us on another episode of To Be Confirmed. I hope that you feel inspired. And please don't forget to like, share, comment, save, and subscribe to the podcast. We'll be seeing you very, very soon with another episode at a date to be confirmed.